The biggest thing you gave me was time.
I've always been a proponent of do the job, do it well.
When you're a family, everyone in the family has to be treated with respect.
I couldn't have done this without you. Coming here to K-State, you've been my confidant and in the room with me.
I want to know who you really are, right? You can put whatever you want on paper, but that doesn't really matter.
His teachers, they meet the learner wherever he is.
They don't care what you know.
They know how much you care.
Be aggressive. Let's win. Here we go.
Without any further ado, what I want to do is, man, I want you to take us through your journey, through your journey, as brief or as extensive as you would like. But take us through your journey that has you now being the vice president of athletics at Kent State University, at the Kent State University.
I appreciate that, and I thank you for having me on. As I said, as we are just starting, there are no mistakes in life. You know, we always end up where we're supposed to be, and like-minded energy people to serve others find like-minded energy people to serve others. So I appreciate you, Van, for this opportunity to have a conversation. And I tell people a lot, you know, my life is like God chose. I cuss a lot, but I love the Lord, you know, like, so that's the foundational background. My story is I grew up in situational poverty in Akron, Ohio. And what I mean by that is my grandmother never made it past the 7th grade. And then my mother never made it past the 11th grade. I'm the first person in my immediate family to graduate high school, go on to get an undergraduate degree, and then go on to get a master's degree. And grandmother, mom never drank, never smoked. That wasn't their environment. It's just in the institutionalized situations of growing up Black in America and the times that they grew up in America. So I had an older brother, and I had two younger brothers or half brothers and a younger half sister. You know, so that's the household I grew up in. And I tell people that, you know, that environment, while we didn't have a lot of means, we had a lot of love and we had a whole lot of laughter, man. So I'm very appreciative of that part of my journey. And then I tell people that the reason, even hearing or seeing Randale Richmond today as the vice president and director of athletics at Kent State University is because of three things: God's favor, people who cared, in sports. Because those three things led me to higher education. It's within higher education that I was able to find and develop my why, and that's to be a transformational leader who has a positive impact on people's lives that resonates well beyond sports. You know, this is the vehicle for me to live out that purpose that I've been put on this earth to live out. You know, and within higher education, my whole life changed. You know, that's where I met my wife, and she is 2 years older than I, and she was attending Kent State. And growing up, I was a football player. You guys can't tell on this Zoom, I'm diminutive in height. You know what I mean? Like, so I wasn't making it to the pros like yourself, big dog. You know what I mean? But I did what I could in the mean streets of Akron. I ended up my senior year being player of the year. And I knew I wasn't going to the NFL. But again, this vehicle that sports could become is what led me to go to college. I was a D2 athlete at best. And again, I'm first generation. Nobody made it, right? So I'm thinking I'm making my decision on who has Florida State colors, because Peter Ward was my favorite player. So it's Gannon or Walsh. And I ended up signing with Walsh University right there in Canton, but it just didn't feel right. So I went on a visit one day to Baldwin Wallace, and that's where I felt like I was supposed to be. And I just wanted to play as much as I can this game that I knew would one day leave me. So there at Baldwin Wallace, I was very involved. Again, people who care in sports, right? And people will see me on campus, hey, Randale, you should be involved in this. Hey, Randale, you ever thought about getting in that? And I would just say yes. One thing that I learned throughout that part of the journey is when somebody says that they think you should do something, to try something, they've seen a person like you before. So that's what they're trying to say. Hey, there's certain traits, mannerisms, behaviors that I see in you that I think you'll be good at in this. And I listen to those people. So graduating from BW, I had a lot of accolades. I was involved in community service stuff, Black United Student stuff, not anything student government, but some stuff behind the scenes that I would be involved in. And I got good grades as well. So it came to my 5th year there. I tore my MCL my freshman year, so I had extra year. And I remember panicking because I was going to be a teacher, math and history. Growing up in the inner city, what you think is the most influential people are your teachers and your coaches. So I said, I'm going to give back by being a math and history teacher. I'm going to coach a football team. And then this is how I'm going to build my family. And that dream began to crumble because I was in there doing my methods teaching. And I realized that, hey, listen, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be one of those people who burns out in 5 years. And I went to this woman named Dean Reading because I was involved. I knew this woman named Dean Reading. I said, Dean Reading, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have one semester left and I'm panicking. I know I don't want to teach anymore. She says, hey, don't panic, Randall. You want to do what I do? Then I'm like, oh, yeah, I absolutely. Hey, what does a dean do? You know what I mean? Like, I'm a first generation college student. I have no idea what a dean's real job is, right? She said, well, don't worry about that. Well, what about grad school? I said, now you're talking. Hey, what's grad school? So she tells me about grad school. And my girlfriend happened to be attending Kent State University in the higher education administration program. And then that's when I learned about Kent State and grad school. I didn't have a vehicle. So I ended up sending my resume. As God will have on his resume, there's a guy named Bob Heller finds my resume, passes over every student athlete there, and says, hey, Randale is the next guy, for some reason. And I went there, and that's the GA ship that I got in compliance and academics. And that's when my career started. And I was there at Kent State for 11 and a half years and began to work my way up until I was over. I started as a GA in compliance, and I started up 11 years. I was overseeing academics compliance and student athlete development, as well as sports medicine. Never taped an ankle. I was overseeing sports medicine because my platform became leadership. And it's because of all the access that I got throughout that time. But I didn't get an opportunity for sport administration there at Kent State. So I had to, and luckily took an opportunity at Old Dominion University. And that's when my entire career changed. I was able to get with Wood Seelig and his number two named Ken Brown. And they gave me access to the oversight of sports, gave me access to the president, alumni. And through oversight of sports, you get fundraising, you get community engagement, you get learn to hire and fire coaches, evaluate coaches. I mean, you learn in a microcosm of what it takes to become an AD. And Wood Seelig gave me access to so many national leadership opportunities that I just then had to perform and do my part. So with all that, 6.5 years there, had opportunity to interview back at Kent State because that job came open and interviewed for that job and ended up being named the first African American Black athletic director in Kent State's history, May of 2021. So that's the fast forward edition of why I'm in front of you today.
I tell you what, man, knowing what I know about you, I know you took, it's cool. I had an opportunity to talk to our team tonight, and I talked about opportunities.
Yeah.
And what I heard is man, you taking advantage of the opportunities that were presented to you. We also at Kansas State, we talk a lot about core values.
Yeah.
And I know that there, if you go to any athletic department, if you go to any football program, they're gonna hit, this is who we are. This is how we live.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask you is about your core values.
Yeah.
And how do your core values go into what you do every day as a leader?
Yeah. Yeah, they're vitally important to me. I was blessed enough to go to the NCAA Leadership Institute program in 2015, and that's where it really changed for me. I used to always think about I want to be a leader and be in these leadership groups. I'm gonna show these people I'm the best leader here, right? I thought that being a leader was about me. It was quickly throughout those programs that I realized that being a leader is about everyone else, and
Right.
that's really when I changed because what they do is they put a whole bunch of the different attributes and characteristics together, and then you got to eliminate them and it helps you refine which are the most core when they go up against each other to yourself. In 15 ways that you may identify yourself, you got to break it down into 3 or 5. But for me, it became like paying attention to the breadcrumbs of my life. And I realized that, I had a God given ability to take complex information to refine it into digestible bites to then give to other people that can help them on their journey. And that became something that made me very helpful to people. And I realized I always just liked helping people. And that really was a foundation of breadcrumbs in my life. So my way that I stuck to my core values being a help to others. And the A stands for being anchored in my faith and family. Because this world, as you very well know, will beat you up, like in leadership. And no matter what it is you do, you're going to have a rough day that beats you to your knees. And all the people who've been giving you adulations, patting you back, what I mean? All of a sudden, I feel like the whole world is beating you up. So in those moments, I can go to my faith and my family because I know that love is unconditional, and that's where the real important anchor is. And then the H is for being honest, because you're honest and transparent. That's how you build trust. That's very important. The E is for engagement. No matter who it is that I'm having a conversation with, that's the most important conversation I'm having at that time. There's nothing worse than having a conversation with a person, they're looking over the shoulder to see if it's a better conversation to go have. So I'm engaged in whatever conversation that'll be. And L is for leadership. We already heard about my foundational belief in transformational leadership. That's leaders who create other leaders, who create other leaders. That's how you serve the world. And then P is for positivity. Listen, life's going to be life. You're going to have rough days. You're going to have bad days. You got a choice. I can choose to engage this and woe is me, or I can be positive and look for the outs that can take us forward. So my core values go into the acronym being a help to myself and help to others.
Man, big time, big time. So in your role, right?
Yeah.
You get an opportunity. You get an opportunity to, and I always, I'm a big leadership book reader.
Yeah.
So, nowadays, and quite a few of the books I've read, we talking about putting people on the bus. We talking about putting them, you get them on the bus, but you want to put them in the right places on the bus.
That's right.
Which is vitally important. But what I want to ask you now, I want to ask you about the kinds of people that you put on your bus, right?
Yes.
When you're looking to hire a coach, when you're looking to hire a person on your athletic department staff, what are those things that you're looking for that this person, yes, this is one that I want on my bus? What are those things that you look for?
Number one is leadership, because a grand leader who believes in transformational leadership, they're going to create other leaders within their organization. And the more leaders that you have within your organization with a clear and concise message, those are the leaders that I try to look for. Because if you have a leader and they have a clear and concise message, then they're able to articulate that, implement that, and then hold people accountable to and for with that on again, day in and day out. That whatever it is that you're engaged in dealing with, as it continues to change and evolve, this person as a leader is going to be able to lead you and those troops and those student athletes through it. I'd had another great opportunity about 2.5 years ago here at the Mid-American Conference under Dr. John Steinbrecher. He brought in this group. I think they were called True Growth. And they say, what is the job of a leader? And these were former military 5-star gentlemen. And they said the job of a leader is SAM, the acronym SAM, to set the mission and vision for the organization, allocate the resources, and then motivate and inspire. Set the mission and vision, allocate the resources, and then motivate and inspire. I look for those leaders who have a clear plan and the clear ability to operationalize that acronym SAM. And then I try to do everything in my power along with our team to support them to the highest core, because I know they have a plan to then execute.
Big time. I always tell our players that leaders, right? Leaders are, because sometimes people think leaders, they are this group of people that I could never touch.
Yeah.
I could never be, right? And that the leader is, he's just different than all the rest of us. And I tell them, you know what? In a way, he is, right? In a way, he is, but you can be him too. But here's why I say in a way he is, that he's different, is because he understands. And I can't remember, there was a guest, I can't remember, someone who we had on this podcast in the past talked about the fact that what makes the leader so different is his or her ability to be vulnerable. It's her ability to say, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. But guess what? I'm going to go figure it out, right?
That's right.
When you think as a leader that you have to have the answers, right? People know you don't have all the answers, right?
Yeah.
They know you don't have all the answers. So you just talked a minute ago about having a clear plan, right?
Yes.
I think it's so important for that leader to understand, man, you don't, like I'm not good at math, right? And I'll tell you that I'm not good at math. That's why my wife is a math teacher, right? Okay, I got that. 1 + 1 is what?
It's a partnership.
Right. But there are things that I'm responsible for that you can best believe that I'm going to be on top of. And so as we talk about these leaders, my question to you is, in your career, you've had some great leaders. You've been around great leaders. What I would ask you is what is it that who are these leaders?
Yes.
Two or three. And what is it that they've brought to your life?
Yeah, I tell you what, it's a fantastic question, and it's always dangerous for me when I try to think about two or three because I've had so many profound people in my life who I've taken from. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of it started out when I was younger in terms of imagery and seeing how people move, and that's your professional athletes, and they're so important. Then you got your writers, your Langston Hughes of the world, you know what I mean, growing up at the time, and the Frederick Douglasses at the time, and you see these figures, and then you engage with just different people who have helped me along my way. I can name, Lane Kennedy was big for me early in my career. He's still the AD emeritus at Kent State, and I still engage with him at least once every month and a half to pick his brain. Wood Selig was great for me at Old Dominion University. He's still great for me to this day. Been a huge help. Um, I'm trying to think of some other folks. I mean, I can really pick up the phone and call a lot of people in the industry. I do a lot of game planning with my executive deputy AD, Greg Loss. Man, I'm not the AD I am without that guy beside me each and every day. I learn a heck of a lot, but it's not because my wife just walked in with our daughter from basketball practice. About my wife's dad, I learned a lot of good sayings. He's been a Methodist minister for a number of years, and he's got a way about articulation and engagement and explaining things. So, man, I've had a lot, and I think the biggest thing about those people is what you touched on, vulnerability, and it's the courage to lead. It's
Yeah.
the courage to lead. When I was going for this job, I happened to be reading Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead, at the time, and it really convicted me because I realized I had a great job at ODU. My family loved it out there, and we were in a great position. I was able to coach some of my kids' teams, and we had a rhythm. Church was down the street, Sam's Club, all the shopping, amenities. If it dusted out there, it was winter. You got to shut everything down. Like, it was a great environment. I was impacting student athletes. I had really good sports, great environment. I was in a safe environment, and it was selfish. And reading that book is what let me know how selfish it was because of that vulnerability, that courage. You know what I mean? I wasn't using the gifts that was given to me to then share them with others because I knew it made me vulnerable. And at some point in time, the AD job ends one way. Like you get told to go home or you're getting another job. So I knew once I got that opportunity, one day I would be fired, right? But I had to have the courage and dare to lead and not focus on that because you have to have the courage to lead because other people need to see you with the gifts you've been given doing that job. And I think about that because there are hard days that I've had in this role, and there's harder ones to come. But those are things that are going to strengthen and galvanize me for the next challenge because people need to see me in this role, and I need to be in this role because I've been given gifts to execute in this role.
Right. And you touched on something just a second ago, which will lead me right into my next question, is that you have to have the courage to lead because others are watching, right?
Man.
And man, over the years, I remember when I was a young coach, and I remember the people that I watched. I remember the Tyrone Willinghams. Right?
Yeah.
I watched that dude, and I listened. Now, Coach Willingham recruited me out of high school, so bam, I was following his career since the moment he came to my high school from Rice University, right? And not many people know Tyrone Willingham coached at Rice, right?
I didn't know that. No.
Walked into my school in a suit, right? He was just different,
Yeah.
And I had offers from all over the country, but I was a young coach who watched his movements, right? And now I look at myself and
Yes, sir.
I talk to a lot of younger coaches, and man, it almost makes me feel like I'm old. I'm not.
You don't look it. I know that's right.
But it makes me feel like I'm old, especially when sometimes I'm talking to players that I coached who
That's
are
right.
now coaching, or I talk to players that I recruited who are
That's
now
right.
coaching. And man, it's just, yes, we have the opportunity to impact our student athletes as they are student athletes, but then it takes another turn, right? You dig deeper into the impact when you have an opportunity to impact young people who are
That's
now
right.
what you do,
That's
right?
right.
And they tell me that Coach, you did it so well that I want to be like you.
That's powerful.
And so the question I have for you is, when you're put in that position, the position
Yeah.
you are, how do you motivate the younger people on your staff? How do you make yourself available to younger people who want to walk the walk that you walk?
Yeah, Van, you hit, I mean, you've led a life of transformational leadership. I mean, you've created other leaders who are creating other leaders who are creating other leaders. And I say that's the positive ripple on the pond that can change the world. And you look at the world as it is, as continents have shifted and changed. The only thing that's ever changed the world is powerful ripples on the pond that become waves that really change the land. That's what you're doing with young people. And there's no greater honor and greater opportunity than anyone can have outside of the ROTC. There's not a greater group of young people to be working with that are going to be the next leader of the world to change the world tomorrow. And we get the privilege and the blessing to be able to do that in their most transformative years. That's a blessing. It's a
100.
great honor. So the way that I look at it, I make myself available because I remember looking up to those people and not realizing they were normal. And I've been me my whole life. I know I'm normal, right? But I often do take it for granted how they don't feel like I am. So I offer that opportunity to be present with them, and I'll get on the phone with any young person. They email me, I do it. They'll come to my office, I do it. I do this thing like back when I was at ODU, even when I was at Kent State the first time, I would take staff to lunch or breakfast. Here at Kent the first time, I used to have to take them to Mike's place, but we used to have to get there at 7 a.m. because that's when the breakfast was $3, and that's all I could afford. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then I carried that on to ODU, and they would call the Randale lunch tour. And I would just go in there and ask them, hey, hey, where do you see yourself in, not in 5 years? No, that's the last position. What's your athletics end game? Okay, well, what are certain ways you think I can help you towards that end game? Well, what are some of the things that I do sometimes that I don't do? I could do more because they don't want to criticize you. So you package it that way. Hey, what are some things that, hey, Randall, you do this sometimes, but if you do this more, it would really help us. That's the way they can offer you a critique so you can then add something that you can do more for them. And then I just engage them, like because we're all just human beings trying to figure this life out and walk this path. If there's any nugget that I've been able to receive along the way that I can pass along to somebody else and it inspires them, or that gives them an opportunity to reach their dream, or they know the dreams they should no longer chase, that's a blessing that I had because of the position I've been given to pass that along to another human being. And that's an honor because they're going to pass that to anybody else. You know what I mean? So if I can live that dash that I have forever long I'm on this earth the right way, and it's through these young people, start with my family first, then man, I lived a beautiful life that's going to have an impact beyond the days that I'm gone.
Power, right? Power. That's what the kids say. When you say something that's power, power. But my next question is, I don't know, this is a cool one. For me as a coach, man, I spend my days beyond Saturdays looking for what I call game day, right?
Oh yeah.
In game day for me as a coach, yeah, it happens on Saturdays out there on third down, when my player makes a play on the ball or whatever, to help our team to win. But game day in my position, it always happens. Game day is when you get a young man who, man, he just can't get right. Right?
Yeah.
He missing class, he late for class.
Yeah.
He's the guy that walks in at I mean, you know
All
that.
the things. Yeah.
That was me at some points in my, early in my career as a student athlete. But when that dude gets it, that's
Yeah.
game day, right? That's game day because you spend a lot of time, trying to pour into young people. You spend a lot of time pouring into young people who sometimes they don't even, you might think they don't
Yeah.
really want to be helped, but they do. And
Yeah.
so
That's good.
so that's the game day for me. Again, I
That's
realize
good.
that it's beyond what happens on Saturday. But for you,
Hmm.
I know it's a little bit different, right? And so my question is like, what is your game day? What is that thing that, as the athletic director, what is that thing that makes that light bulb pop on your head? What is that thing that makes you say yes?
Yeah. First, let me go ahead and acknowledge and give you acknowledgement beyond measure for your servitude of young people. Like what you just said is so paramount. I figure I should need to turn the mic around and interview you and ask that question because that I never heard anybody put it like that, Van. And what you're doing for those people who are putting up that outer tough shell of not acting like they need any help, that's really the true work. Because anyone can take a person like I was talking about earlier, who are natural leaders and have a desire for leadership and help pour into them. But what about the person who rejects you, who runs away from you, but you see something in them before they see it in themselves? Now that's real work, man. So let me go ahead and praise you for that level of commitment and that level of purpose that you live in your life. That's strong. I haven't heard it put like that. So with that, my game day is really getting in front of our staff and coaches because we have a guiding principle that I learned years ago and I didn't even know what it meant. Lee Reed was an athletic director at Cleveland State when I first started my GA-ship at Kent State. And I remember there wasn't many black athletic directors, wasn't many black head coaches. I saw Ty Willingham, and again, this is another figure that you see and notice at the time. So I remember I did the research, and internet wasn't even popping like it is like now. Like back then, I found a paper that Lee Reed wrote, read the papers, like, hey, Lee Reed, emailed him. I read one of your papers. This is who I am. I hear you from Cleveland. I'm from Mac. I would love to meet with you. So I'm just going after Lee. I'd love to meet with you. So I'm thinking like, all right, let me go ahead and get a hold of this guy. And he used to, but then right before he said, yeah, I'll have coffee, he got the job at Georgetown. So I didn't get a chance to sit with Lee Reed, but I was able to watch his whole career. And he always used to say that the best athletic departments are student-centered, coach-led, and administrator-supported. Student-centered, coach-led, and administrator-supported. And I didn't know what that fully meant, but as my career began to go and grow, I really started to understand it. And it became this guiding principle that I then developed even further for at least the way that I could articulate it and brought it to Kent State. So why would we do that? Well, I told our staff, and it'll get to the point, I told our staff, hey, I'm going to ask people who are overworked, who are understaffed, and feel undervalued and underpaid to serve you coaches more. I need you coaches to be worthy of that servitude. Because if you're worthy of that servitude and they're serving you, you're going to be freed up to do your jobs. And if you're an extraordinary leader, you're going to be able to provide these student athletes with an extraordinary student athlete experience. If they have an amazing student athlete experience, they're going to return back to Kent State. They return back to Kent State, they're going to be developed by coaches like Van, our strength and conditioning coaches, our academic coaches, and they're going to become juniors and seniors. And you look at any championship team you've seen at the collegiate level, it's been filled with juniors and seniors. That's how you get that next crop of great freshmen and transfers. Student centered, coach led, administrator supported. That's how we need to be. So for me, that game day moment is when we have these situations that are the tough situations and we're able to dive into our guiding principle. And I can see these coaches lead to the highest accord. I can see the staff supporting them to do so. And they feel that these coaches are worthy of that servitude because the way that they treat them for serving. And then they then pour that back into our student athletes. When I see that take hold and I see that in the habits and behaviors of our young people, I'm beyond excited. When I'm able to figure something out that can help them to do their jobs better, I'm beyond excited. Like, because I feel like I helped in that moment, because that's where our jobs are. We don't have them without the students there. And we aren't able to do them without great coaches leading them. So administrators, we got to figure out a way to support them, but we got to have the right ones in those positions to support.
So that was a lot right there, right? but here's what I heard, and we could sit here all day, right?
Yeah.
on this one thing that I heard, right? I talked to, and really in the last few months, the last few guests we've had, we talked this landscape.
Oh yeah.
This landscape. But I'm gonna tell you, it don't matter what we're talking about. We want to talk about the transfer portal. We want to talk about NIL. We want to talk about revenue sharing. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Right.
If we stay on student-centered, right?
That's
if we
right.
stay locked in on the student athlete being the center of our focus, right?
That's right.
If we stay right there, if the fans stay right there, if the donors stay right there, if the administrators stay right there, if the coaches stay right there, if the parents stay right there.
Yes, facts.
Right? If the student athletes stay right there, if we stay right there on student centered, on student athlete centered, on the fact that, man, this is we are like you said, we are transforming you.
That's right.
We are building you for life, right?
That's
This
right.
moment that we're in right now, we talk about revenue sharing. We talk
Yeah.
about any of those topics. Man, we are building you for the future. And what I say and what you have just said is that if we can build you the right
Yes.
way for the future,
That's
man,
right.
we're going to look 20, 30 years from now, you're going to be on a podcast somewhere, right? You're going to be on a podcast that nobody before this transformation would
That's
have
right.
guessed that you would be able to be on this podcast in 30 years.
That's right.
But here you are, right?
That's
and
right.
so when we talk about the landscape, there's all kinds of talk. There's negative talk. I don't know what's going on with college sports.
Right.
Which that's my commitment as a coach.
Yes.
Man, I'm gonna stay right because that is, you said it, and I'm excited that there's somebody else who's been put on this earth.
Yeah.
It's purpose. Like that's my purpose. My purpose is to impact young people, to change the world through sports.
That's right. That's right.
So whatever house you have me operate in, I'm going
That's
to
right.
same thing. I'm going to operate the same way. If we create rules where I can give my players $1 million to play the game, man, we do it. Fine.
Yes.
They still gonna get this Coach Malone.
That's right. That's right.
Get this Coach Malone. If we allow them to transfer every 5 minutes of the day, they still gonna get this Coach Malone because not everybody can handle this Coach Malone, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can handle this. And guess what? Coach Malone can handle some things, right? But we have a responsibility to do it the way it's supposed to be done, right?
That's right.
No matter what parameters, no matter what landscape, no matter what lays out in front of us. All right.
Yeah.
A soapbox, and I'm off of it.
Yeah, no, it's good. These jobs are hard, man. Everything that we do is hard because unlike certain people's worlds, there's a scorecard and there's a passion around what we do. And everyone has a feeling around it and touch so they feel like they could be an expert in it, but they've never really done it. But I don't bemoan that. That's what makes it so interesting. That's what makes the interest so important. And at the same time, substance always wins. There's going to be transactions in our enterprise. There's going to be transactions. And just like anything that's substantive, it's going to be the foundation, still going to be the relationships.
Right.
There will be microtransactions. It's just like any food. You can't eat, what I mean, the sides all day and chips all day and feel like you've been fulfilled. Sometimes you're gonna need that meat and potatoes. So if Coach Malone is coaching you with the meat and potatoes, and that's really caring about who you are and the betterment of your life, there might be a person with a better microtransaction out there, but it's going to have to be pretty darn high in order for that person to want to leave that substance, that family, that real connection, that real being a part of something. You need microtransactions to build it up. That's why you don't just eat meat and potatoes. You got a couple sides. You needed a part, and that's part of our game today. So let's understand that, evolve into that, because one thing that the world's going to do and humans going to do, we're going to evolve to that, but don't lose the core of why we exist. And that's giving a lot of people access to higher education, an opportunity to change their families' lives for generations, and or elevate their family lives for generation. Do this beautiful thing and all the lessons that are taught through sport. So that's how I look at that place and space. And we keep that focus on the student athlete. We'll be able to figure out whatever the world becomes.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, this is my last question. And actually, man, this is one that I think is kind of cool, and I kind of have a lot of fun just listening to people as they answer this question. It's not too cool for you, honestly, because you're a young man, right? You're a young man. When you're an older man, right, you get an opportunity to answer this question, and you can look back and shake your head. But for you, wasn't that long ago that you were young. So my question is, you look back at that young Randale Richmond, that dude, man, that dude, right?
Yeah.
You look at him, and you have an opportunity, if you were to have an opportunity to have a conversation with him. Now, this dude did some things, and he had some thought processes that they're pretty far-fetched as you look at him today. But if you could have a conversation with him, what would be some things that you would tell him that would help him, right? Because he knows he had all the answers back in those days, but how could you help him knowing what you know today if you could advise him?
Yeah, I get asked this question often, and I remember being in probably in the eighth grade, man. Uh, Tupac had this song, "Staring at the World Through My Rear View." I don't look through my world in the rear view. I believe everything that was a mistake or a fault that I had or made me into the person I am today, and I'm thankful the person I am today. Difficulties are to the mind like labor is to the body. I've been, engaging in a lot of stoicism over the last year and a half. And all those difficulties, what they do is they prepared me to see if I could solve and find my way through them. So then I can solve the highest level of difficulty. The reward for solving tough problems is you get tougher problems. That's the reward because you don't know what the max of your problem solving and servitude abilities are. So I don't go back and tell a young Randale anything different, but I do go back and tell the young Randale that I love you, that I'm proud of you, and that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. That's what I go back and I tell that young man as he's going through those difficult times. I love you unconditionally. I'm proud of you. And you don't have to prove who you are to anybody. That's what I say to him.
All right. Guess what? And he definitely would appreciate that. Just like
Yeah.
for these student athletes that we talk about, sometimes, man, that might be just good enough, right? Because they don't get that quite often from people outside their worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this was a great conversation. There were nuggets thrown all about. And it's so cool, for me, because I've had the opportunity to, like John Gordon,
Oh yeah.
man, John Gordon
Oh
is
yeah.
like one of my, like, if he writes a note on a sheet of paper, I'm trying to get it, right? So having the opportunity to speak with him, having the opportunity, man, to speak with coaches who've coached in the Super Bowl and coaches and athletic directors who've had great success and been doing this
Yeah.
a long time. Well, when you sit and you talk to those people
Yeah.
and you chop through some of these things that we talk about, you find out that it's simple. I actually wanted to say it. There was something you were saying earlier, and I said, man, it's not complicated. It's it is very simple. This world that we live, this life we're trying to figure out, man,
Yeah.
some parts of it are very difficult, right?
Yeah.
It's like a maze for some parts of it, but other parts, man, is simple. Because I listen to leaders and I hear them say the same things, but they say
That's
it
right.
in a little different way. When you talk about the books that talk about habits of highly successful people,
Yes. Yes.
man, highly successful people, they're doing this. So when I talk to my players, I'm
Yeah.
like, winning teams, elite players, they do this. And if doing this, there's no possible way. I don't care what your uncle, your trainer, I don't care what you see on Twitter. There's
That's right.
possible way for you to operate in this lane because you're trying to be in this lane. So when I
That's
hear
right.
speak like you, man, for me, honestly, it's like a confirmation. I'm like, yep,
That's right.
this is a good one.
That's right. They
this,
say, Van, it's simple, but it ain't easy.
that's
It's
right.
simple, but it ain't easy because these daily disciplines, these daily habits, and then finding the confidence through all the criticism and critiques, it can knock you off. It's simple, but it ain't easy. And that's where you need something that can anchor you to a purpose that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and that, you know what? You spoke of your faith. You spoke of that Bible, right? When you locked in on your faith, man, these things, because you said it earlier as well, is that, and I say it to our team, is that when we overcome this adversity, it's actually
Yes.
preparing us for the next one, right? Because there's going to be another one, right?
Oh yeah, a bigger one. A
Big
bigger
one.
one, man. The gift of problem solving is a tougher problem.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's what it's about. Because if we can get biblical, you get trusted in the small, you can be trusted in the big.
Yep.
These things come back to that. It's simple. It's just not easy, right? So that's and it's hard because when you're going through that fire, you're like, man, I don't want this suffering. But the only way you lose is if you give up and quit right then. If you can find something that can train you to be better, something that can mentally prepare you to be stronger, something that can pull you through that you can learn that you can then apply, then now you've solved that. And now you're climbing further up the mountain. And then what happens is when the gift of solving the problem is getting a harder problem, you look back and you see how far you've come. Because when you're in it, you forget it. Well, that's because you're on this level of the mountain, solving harder problems. That's the gift of being able to solve a hard problem. You get a harder problem. It's just training you up for what's next.
That's right. Well, man, I appreciate your time, and as always, it's fabulous to be able to spend time with you. And man, we're gonna do everything we can to, like I said earlier, Pat, put this thing in a box for us, in a cute box, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
In a wisdom-filled box, and hopefully everybody who partakes in it is able to get something from it.
That's a good brother, and he told me about his kinfolk, his brother who is a track athlete at Kent State. So you see me all Kent Stated out here, and I got the ball cap on because the Guardians won the night in dramatic fashion right before I got on here, so I had to represent with the Kent State baseball look for the moment. But I do appreciate him putting together like this. And tell my man Gene Taylor I say hello. He's been another person who's been able to give me wisdom along my road.
Yep. He definitely is a good man. He's actually been on and has shared as well. And so
he's good. He's good, man. And so are you, Ben. So are you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. I need you to tell that to my kids, players, and my kids at home, because they there are times when they think, hey man, I'm the devil himself, right?
That's what discipline and accountability do that sometime.
And I said, I'm doing this discipline for you, not to you.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you again, man. I appreciate you.
All right, brother. Love, man. Appreciate being on.